In this session, we will learn about loops in PHP. Loops are used to execute a block of code repeatedly as long as a specified condition is true. PHP supports several types of loops, including for, while, do while, and for each. We will also cover the continue and break statements, which are used to control the flow of loops. The for loop is used when you know in advance how many times you want to execute a statement or a block of statements. The syntax of a for loop is like this. We will type for, and inside the parentheses, the first part is initialization, the next one is condition, the next is increment. And inside the curly braces, we will type the code that we would like to execute. Type for, and inside the parentheses, we put the initialization variable, which is I, 0, and the condition is going to be, we want it to iterate until this condition is met, which is I is less than 10. And what's our incrementer? We want it to be incremented by 1 every single iteration. So I plus plus. So this is equivalent of typing I equals I plus 1. Okay. So for this we type I plus plus, just like that, and open curly brace. So we simply going to print the I value on each and every iteration. So the number is I, and then we add a break tag, just like that. Save the code, go to the browser. You can see that it's iterated 10 times, and when it's reached 10, it will stop iterating. Okay, so going back to the code, let's do the while loop. The while loop executes a block of code as long as specified condition is true. The syntax of a while loop is like this. While, inside the parentheses, we'll type the condition, opening and closing curly braces, and inside of it we will type the code to be executed. So for while loop, we put while, inside the parentheses we put the condition. So before that we need to initialize the variable, so I'm putting I equals 0, and the condition is I is less than 10, open curly braces. We wanted to print out the number just like how we did for the for loop. Number is I, and then break, and afterwards we will put the incrementer, so I plus plus. So this basically means that the initial value is going to be 0. So the first iteration is 0, then it will add 1 to I until it reaches this condition. It will iterate. So let's go to the browser. It's the same result. The number is 0 until 9. The next is do while loop. The do while loop is similar to while loop, but it guarantees that the code block is executed at least once. The syntax of a do while loop is like this. Do, then opening and closing parentheses, and inside we will type the code to be executed. Outside of the closing curly brace, we type while, and inside the parentheses we will type the condition. The difference between do while and while loop is that do while loop will execute the initial iteration without checking the condition, but while loop does check for the initial condition before executing the code. So for do while loop, we type do, and then we open curly braces. We will type the code to be executed, and the number is I, break, and then we add the iterator, so I plus plus, and then we put the condition inside the while. So we want it to iterate until it reaches this condition, which is I is less than 10. Okay, so we go and refresh the page. It's the same result. So let's say if I put 13, which doesn't meet this condition. So if you put 13 and let's go to the browser and check, you can see that the code block has been executed even though the condition is I is less than 10. So that's the beauty of do while loop. So the scenarios where we use do while loop is that you wanted to initially execute the code and then you check the condition. So that's where you use the do while loop. The for each loop works only on arrays and is used to loop through each key value pair in an array. The syntax of for each loop is like this. For each, then inside we pass the array as, and then the value. This value corresponds to each items inside the array. And inside the curly braces, we will type the code to be executed. So we type for each, and inside we pass the array, and we put as, and then we supply the item name. So this is the individual item that we are iterating, and this represents each items inside this array. Open curly braces, and inside we type echo, and we want to display this item. So this color is color, just like that. We can add a break tag after it. Save and go to the browser. So that's how we can iterate an array using for each. Now we can look at break and continue statements. For that, I'm utilizing the for loop. So I equals 0, I is greater than 10, I plus plus. So for the break statement, when the condition will be met, it will terminate the loop entirely. So the subsequent statement will not be executed, it will get stopped. So for this example, I want to terminate this loop when I equals 5, just like that. Simply type break, and outside of this if, we type echo, this is number I, then break tag, go to the browser, to the page. You can see that when it reaches 5, the loop will be terminated and it stops the subsequent statement executions. So that's the usage of break statements. Now, if you put continue, see what happens. So you can see that it skips the 5th iteration. So this continue statement is used to skip the current iteration of a loop and continue with the next iteration. So we have 0 till 9 and it skipped the number 5.